Hey there, everybody. Thanks a bunch for joining us for our May webinar, Beyond the Hype of Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence. My name is Mary Kate, and today we have a presenter many of you may recognize, our CEO, Scott Burt. And if you don't recognize that name, or if this is your first webinar with us, we are really happy to have you today. Scott presented on this topic at the MER conference in Chicago last week, so we thought it'd be a great opportunity to use this month's webinar as a chance for all of us to discuss where we think machine learning and AI are going and where everybody is here is at with it today. A quick note, we may need the whole 30 minutes today, but please feel free to ask questions as usual, and we'll follow up after the webinar. We have a poll coming right up, so be sure to share your thoughts there. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Scott.
Awesome. Mary Kate, thanks for that nice introduction, and glad to have you on board and doing our webinars for us. So folks, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the camera, just makes it a little bit maybe more interesting and reduce the miles between us. And thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We have a pretty large attendance for registrations today, and coming from a lot of different industries and walks as well, and as well as other technology companies and consulting companies. So welcome, and I hope this is value for your half hour of your valuable day or your time. As Mary Kate mentioned, we are going to dive right in with a poll question. So Mary Kate, I'm going to go ahead and launch that thing. And folks, if I can ask the technology companies and the consulting companies that join our call, refrain so that we can have the end users and stuff answer and have a little bit more interest, I guess, in the survey results. And we'll share these survey results with everybody here. But you plan to leverage some of these technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, or natural language processing in your information governance program. So go ahead and answer for me if you could. And Mary Kate, I'm looking for the darn thing. Here we go. And so there we go. So as soon as we have a few answers there, let's go ahead and publish it. Mary Kate, thank you.
All right. Closing that now, and I'm going to share it. There we go.
All right, and so we have some interesting results on here. So about 11% on each side of this bell curve are either immediately going to be doing it or not planning on it. And then in the middle, 22% next year in 2020, and 56% looking at it out past 2020. And I think with budgeting cycles and things like that, that's pretty fair and realistic. So good answers. Thanks for sharing those. And I want to start off here and share just a little bit of perspective as we look at that bean artwork thing in Chicago that I love. I took that picture. And I want to share that our intended audience for this webinar are information governance professionals, not necessarily targeting this presentation to data scientists or artificial intelligence experts already. It's more folks that are in the field of information governance and helping their employers manage and govern their information for privacy and records management, regulatory, legal, etc. And an introduction on what are these things and how they can be applied to your business and your job function. And a little more in perspective, so Integro and we are a consulting companies. We help a lot of companies with information governance and technology solutions applied to information governance, and more it's with artificial intelligence and machine learning in particular that we're using here quite a bit. And so we want to share our thoughts from that perspective for you. This is not a sales pitch. I'm not even talking about any particular product. It's just purely educational and a level set for everyone. So hopefully it's a good use of your time and a value. I want to start off with the end rather than building it all up and then telling you what the results are. I want to share that I believe it's going to be pretty universal, probably sooner than you think, in your use, your application, where all of us in our jobs will be using AI at some point, probably daily in our jobs. It will oftentimes be as enhancements to products you may already own or purchase in the future, or integrated into the solutions that you acquire. It won't be necessarily an AI project or an ML project standalone, but it will make those projects better and more valuable to you. Further on my theory, I think it's important for you and I and us, all of us, to get very educated This has really been, there's a lot of hype around it, as you've probably been hearing, and it's the next industrial revolution, and it's going to have a huge impact on productivity and that kind of thing. And I think it is. It's going to be pretty big, and it's the who of us, even if our job isn't as a data scientist, even if it's in information governance, it's pretty smart for us to read up and study up and be aware so we can be conversant. And hang on, it's going to happen very rapidly, and it already is happening very rapidly. So as an information governance professional, common use cases that you would do in your job and help your employer with, you want to classify content, set retention for retention and disposal. You want to increase the findability so that you can find that content of value, your key users, quickly and efficiently and put it to use. You want to assess the value of content. You want to clean up. That's a really popular one right now with all the privacy regulations and breaches and the like. We're doing a lot of file share cleanup kind of projects. And enrich the content. It really goes with findability. Add additional metadata and indexing fields so you can get more value to do all these other things by enriching that content. Let's start off and educate just a little bit of what is artificial intelligence. And so it really refers to machines that can learn, reason, and act for themselves. We're not talking about, HAL 2020 kind of things where it can do general artificial intelligence and do everything by itself. That's kind of still out there a ways, but more narrow artificial intelligence where you're training the machines and the computers to do one particular thing well and at scale and repeatedly. Now you might look at this next one as an eye chart kind of thing, but I could do the Wikipedia, what's the definition or the Webster's definition of AI, but I found this, the link is down there at the bottom, by the way, and it's from MIT Technology Review, and they made a little flow chart, and I thought, hey, this is kind of handy here. And across the top where it starts, it asks the question, can it see? Can it hear, read, move, reason, etc.? And then you follow it down through the yes, no's, and it kind of tells you, yeah, it's artificial intelligence. So let's take it down here for read. Is it reading what you type? Well, yes. Does it respond in a useful, sensible way? Yes. Well, that's natural language processing. So, for example, you might be, I know on my phone, if I'm typing a message to somebody on a text message, or if I'm using Gmail or others, it will automatically finish my sentences remarkably well and accurately, and you can just hit tab to finish that sentence. It's an example there of artificial intelligence and natural language processing, in this case, working on your for your benefit. And so every time I talk to my Alexa device or my Hey Google or things like that, those are all examples of using AI and in our day-to-day lives. So chances are you've already used AI today getting to work or the like, and you maybe didn't even think about it. So it is pretty ubiquitous already, and for those that aren't even in the profession, of course. So what is machine learning? Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, and it looks for patterns in massive amounts of data. And then that's really key. It's really pattern matching, putting like things together. So we use it for document classification commonly. You may use it, and I use it personally for image recognition a lot. OCR, so optical character recognition, so scan in a document and have it read the text and turn it into machine readable text. Voice transcription, document capture are just a few of the examples where the technology machine learning is applied. So let me make it a little more real. Google Photos. If I just search on my son's name, Austin Burt, and if I add golfing, it finds instances of my son golfing. So here's Austin Burt on a golf course. It even pulls up ones, I chuckled about this one here. It's got the golf balls in there and that game with that you throw and you get it on the ladder. And it even got putt-putt from when he was a little kid. So pretty remarkable how it can recognize that that's Austin Burt in these pictures and associated golf and somehow. Let's apply it to business. So this is an example using Box. I just use them as again, a representative example. By the way, instead of just a picture of my son golfing, think business now. Think you're a retailer or a fashion designer, you've got gazillions of photos of your fashions, and you need to find certain ones. Well, you can use machine learning to automatically enrich your content, those photos, and attach metadata that the computer figures out. It figured out it was a female and she's shopping. It included the items. It could be from, if they know your styles, it can include what's from the spring collection, whatever. I'm a little more guy, so think about it could be a machine too. It could be a washing machine, a dishwasher. You could have photos of it and it will instantly recognize, oh, that's model number blippity blip, right? And it's in stock, or how to help a customer get support just by uploading a photo, for instance. But Box Skills is interesting because they've done some work, and it really exemplifies that point I made earlier. Box is not working on inventing the machine learning capabilities underneath the covers. They're using the big four providers to provide that artificial intelligence machine learning capabilities. And so when you deposit upload a document, say into Box, it can have a trigger and use an API, application programming interface, and send off that image or that document or that video to your favorite cloud provider and have it analyze that content using these tools. It sends the results back, and then you can add that metadata into the system. And Box, it's what I said before. It's like integrated within, or it's a feature of the products that you own and use, or that you might look to in the future. So what is natural language processing? NLP, NLU, it's got a few different kind of acronyms, but it's really the computer understanding, analysis, and processing of human language. So think of that Alexa machine here and she's responding right now, as I've already said that word. She's over there responding. By the way, it makes for a fun challenge when my daughter's name is actually Alexa, and so now she was named that before there was millions of computers doing that. So what is text analytics? So I grabbed this from the Microsoft's website in Azure, where you could see their capabilities. And in this case, in fact, I think since I'm doing it this way, I can just click and go out here, and let's go take a look directly. I probably should have had this already open, but it's kind of fun. They've got some neat little capabilities. So here they've got some text in a sentence. I had a wonderful trip to Seattle and enjoyed seeing the Space Needle. And it pulls out the key phrases: Seattle, wonderful trip, Space Needle, the sentiment, etc. Now, I could type in whatever I want, but it's kind of preloaded so I can not have to be creative. So this sentence, unfortunately, it rained during my entire trip to Seattle. I didn't even get to visit the Space Needle. And here it pulls out some of the same key phrases, but note that it recognized that the key sentiment now is negative. Still pulls out the entities, knows that it's the language English, etc. And by the way, it also shows how it creates a JSON file, basically a way for the computers to read and use all of this information that Microsoft Azure was able to send back on the analysis of that text. So now imagine you could take it out of the box. You can also add to it and have it learn the vernacular for your language, for your company, for your acronyms and things like that, and help know what the entities are and things like that. So you can, so your programs, software developed, etc., inside your employer's organization could then reach out to Microsoft Azure in this case, or IBM Watson, and return back that additional value like you're seeing here. That's one example. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. By the way, I love your questions and comments. And in the right over here, we have a questions place where you can enter questions, and there's also a chat. And that chat just goes to myself and Mary Kate, and fire away some comments, and I might incorporate it into our conversation here. I'd love to hear more about how you're doing this. I know 11% of you are doing it immediately. What are you doing? Let us know. So let's go ahead and look here at the next thing. I want to add to this definition and talk about supervised versus unsupervised. So these are kind of types of, say, machine learning in this case. Unsupervised is when it basically is going to, you can feed it a lot of documents, say, and it will on its own cluster them together. So in this case, actually I took this from our friends over at BrainSpace, and and you can probably recognize this from the Enron data set, but feed it a bunch of documents, and it's going to put the like documents together, and then you could add a user interface on top of it, like BrainSpace did, where you can drill into the documents. It's closer to the center, the more documents, the broader the topic, and in this case, the way their user experience works, the further out you get, the smaller number of documents, the tighter the more like they are, and you can drill into them and that kind of thing. It's used commonly in e-discovery, and we like it also for information governance. Now contrast that with supervised learning. Supervised learning, we're going to train it on what we often do is your file plan. You've got your records and retention schedule, which defines these are the kind of important documents that we have in our company in the administration, in the manufacturing, and in sales and marketing, say, and what these subcategories are. Well, if we can get a number, usually a large number, of good examples for each of these, we can train the machine learning. We can give it a lot of exemplary content to know what the documents for, say, energy usage look like. Let me go back one. I didn't mean to do that. And then in the future, as it comes across another document, maybe as we're going across file shares, we're doing email or the like, it will go, hey, this thing has a 90% probability it belongs in that energy usage records category. Boom, we can auto-declare it or suggest it to the user. So, example of supervised learning. Okay, IG use cases, information governance use cases to consider. We're looking for stuff that's a bit repetitive. So, now, by the way, I'm not a data scientist. I'm not an AI expert. I'm an expert on information governance and applying technology to our customers' needs. And then we have a lot of smart people behind us that help do all this stuff. But I saw I'm good at learning from experts. So Christian Hammond is a professor at Northwestern, and he had some simple criteria for where might these tools be a good fit. So you want to find tasks that are that take the time of highly skilled workers and they're low skilled or repetitive. So is it data driven, the task? Do you have data, like example content, to support the automation of that task? And do you really need the scale that automation can provide? We always need to ask that business question. A lot of people think this is, the easy button. I'm gonna, hey, I bought this AI tool and it's gonna do everything for me. No, not so much. It's gonna require some human oversight to help make this thing work and investment. So need to have some scale. By the way, we took this sample of the setup master record categories. This sample file plan comes out of our product, Integro Email Manager, where you can upload the files. So one of the use cases, I talked about it before, classification, and often it's for records, for finding the records, and then relatedly is defensible disposal. And you might first ask, well, how do those two relate? If we're doing a file share cleanup, the vast majority of your content, 50, 60, 70% of your content in your file shares is probably expired and can be deleted. But how do you know? Well, there's really three criteria. And if you answer no to all three of these, then you don't need it. You can delete it. One is, do you have a legal requirement? Legal requirement is commonly like, is it on legal hold? Is there a regulatory requirement? So you're required to keep it because of it's a testing for a medical device or something. It's a regulated requirement. Or it's a business value, and you have business value records categories. Also, end users say, hey, I need this to do my job. That email I just got 5 minutes ago, it's still a business value. Next year, it's not so much value. But if you answer no to all three of those, you not only can, but you should dispose of that content. So the way we do that is if we can find all the records and those things that are on legal hold, and we know it's not a business value for those end users anymore, all that remaining content that didn't get caught in that net is up for defensible deletion. Let's do a couple case studies. I've got three actually on this particular topic, and each with a little bit different approach. So here's one where large company, Fortune 500, and no small amount of email, billion, actually more than 1 billion emails in the archive. They had over 100 records categories, but some of them were very like, meaning a human would have a tough time telling the difference between, well, this should go in this category or that category. And they had similar retention periods. We consolidated those down, worked with outside counsel and inside counsel, consolidated those down to 87, trained it on those 87. We also further had those 87 categories by high priority, very important. Make sure we get these medium categories, medium and low risk, right? Sure nice to have these. It took, by the way, it took several months to put all this thing together because we didn't have an easy access to samples for each of those 87 records categories. So it took some effort to find a lot of good samples and curate that content. Once we had the model built, we turned it loose on 1 billion emails, in this case in a FileNet archive, and it took about 5 months, and we classified all of them, 256 million, about a quarter of which qualified as records to one of those 87 records categories. And of course, as we talked about earlier, then the remainder, once those legal holds are made sure and respected, are up for deletion. Another one here is with email management. Now, the last time we looked at the old email you have in your archives, we do a lot of work with old email archives still, and huge ones, by the way, helping customers clean them up in a variety of ways. In this case, we do a lot of work helping companies with their day forward email and doing better email management. So in this case, we have a product called Integro Email Manager. Again, we train the models to recognize your records in that file plan, and then it assists the users. It will auto-classify, so say if it's at 90%, that high percentage probability, it'll auto-declare it to that records category. And if it's, say, 65%, well, it's kind of high, but not high enough to auto-declare it. Let's put a flag on it and ask the user, maybe take a look at that one. And a lot of you have heard about this approach called 3-zone email management, where you have an auto-delete zone, work in progress, and records. This really makes it really easy for the end users and helps enable them. Got 7 minutes left. Another case study here. Let's see, pharmaceutical company, 40 terabytes of records already classified in Documentum. They went to the legal for approval to get that signature, to sign off that we're going to dispose of the content that's past its retention period. And the attorney did, guess what? I haven't looked at those 40 terabytes. How can you verify and validate and, with conviction that they're all classified correctly? Well, guess what? Using these tools, we can. The sample content was all kind of nicely organized, made the training faster. We were able to train the model and then process that 40 terabytes of documents, PDF, Word, etc., and return back a statistical analysis that said, yeah, they did a pretty good job classifying those and gave comfort for signing off on that disposition order. This is another interesting one, and IBM has a really cool tool coming out on this one, and others do as well of those big four. But let's use forms. In this case, I've got different invoices being shown to you, and you'll note that each one looks different, but each one has pretty much all the same information. Invoices are probably overused as an accounts payable use case, but it works. It's all got an invoice number, it's got a date, it's got payment terms, it's got an amount, and who it's from, etc. Might have line item detail. And if we were going to do that, we've been doing invoices and accounts payable for years. And if we're going to train a capture software to recognize these invoices, and let's say you have 1,000 suppliers, and each one has a different format for the invoice, we need to have a smart technical person drawing little boxes in different ways and techniques to say, recognize this as an invoice from Dunder Mifflin, and here's where the invoice number is, and here's where the date is, etc. And it's very rigid and breakable, and you got to do that 1,000 times. Well, imagine if we're using artificial intelligence and machine learning here, we can tell it, hey, on these forms, look for the customer name. And it has other ways that that name might come up. Look for the invoice number. Look for the state that they're in, their address, etc. And it doesn't matter where in the document it is and what it's labeled, because it might be called client or customer or something else. The machine learns, oh, customer is the same thing as client. It's Acme, and it puts it in the right field. And so now a business analyst, instead of a developer, can train this thing and say, look for these kinds of things, and here's what you do with it. And so it dramatically shortens how long it takes to set up the system for recognizing all this content, and it's more malleable, right? If Dunder Mifflin changes their invoice, well, the system's just going to recognize it and keep going and not have to be updated on the development. So yay IBM, I think that was called Content Analyzer, and that's a completely cloud service from IBM. It's pretty cool. There's a bunch of additional IG use cases. Too much time if I made a slide for each one, but you might do like what I just showed you, forms, data extraction, text analysis. I'll tell you what, some big ones are video. You can do some really cool stuff with video, showing who's talking, topics, being able to jump right there, full text search the video and jump right to that point in the video. So if you have those kinds of things, customer service, commonly for video, voice transcription, mergers and acquisitions. We're trying it out for privacy as well. If you read the privacy regs like California Consumer Privacy Act, it doesn't say privacy data is social security number and you just look for 3 digits -2-4, that'd be easy. It says anything that can possibly be inferred to a person or a household. It's like you can't just write a rule to do that. We're going to have to find additional ways to find that content across the enterprise. So that's an area that we're looking at as well. So some names you know. So Microsoft, of course, they have their platform called Azure, Amazon with AWS, IBM Cloud, and Google Cloud. And they have a whole lot of offerings. But in this area of natural language processing and machine learning, you can see that they pretty much all have something here it's kind of like an arms race. As soon as one of these 4 providers comes up with a cool new tool or offering, all the others seem to scramble and try to come up with one as well and one up them, etc. And each of these have some different characteristics, right? So some might be better suited depending on your skills of your development team. Google, while one of the Google is one of the smaller cloud providers relative to sales with Azure and AWS, they're recognized as some of the leaders with AI and ML, and we've all heard about Watson as well. And all these guys have some pretty cool tools, and you and your developers might need to do some trial and error and figure out which one you like best for your use case. Let me show you a slide here on each of these, and I'm going to go quickly here because I've only got about a minute left. Azure, here's another one for language understanding. This is another fun one to play with, by the way. You can left on the floor lamp, and then it shows how it listens to your voice and transcribes your text into something else. And so it's kind of fun in that respect. Amazon has a thing called Comprehend. This is just another example here. And so think about this from information governance, right? It can take your social media posts, emails, web pages, documents, phone transcripts, medical records, pump it into Amazon Comprehend, and it can automatically extract key phrases, entities, sentiments, language, syntax, topics, and document classifications. If you're in the world of information governance, sounds interesting, I want to learn more. And of course, it puts it out like we were talking about earlier. From IBM, theirs is NLU, Natural Language Understanding. And a lot of these have, by the way, ways you can get started for free and get your hands dirty. And so it's kind of cool in that sense. So get out there and read and play, right? And you'll figure out how much you don't know, by the way, when you're doing that. Here's something from the Google Cloud. I just want to point out, you're not going to go out there and find a Google Cloud page for, here's our information governance solutions. But you might be able to apply other things. So on the same page, like contact center for customer service, that's a real popular use case that everybody's seen a lot of value in. But we also see here their document understanding AI. So bringing it home here, pros and cons. Pros, you can automate previously impossible tasks like classify 1 billion documents. We did it, 5 months. Cheap to start. You just go out and sign up on the account. No AI experience necessary, but you'll quickly read words and concepts. You're like, what the heck? So read and learn some more. Rapid progress. What you know today and what I'm telling you today is probably going to be old news in a few months as each vendor is coming out with new stuff, and there's a lot of new capabilities. And a lot of the companies that are integrating these tools are coming out with new versions and new things all the time. And like I said, you're going to see AI as features in products such as Box and Integro there. On the con side, it's not magic, guys. It does take time and effort to train the system. It's still early days, even though it's rapidly expanding and evolving. You're going to have to compete for internal budget. If your company, employer's doing an AI project, well, your smart AI people might be working on how to grow more revenue or the like. So you're always going to have that, how do I get enough budget and show the ROI? Oh, I want to back up one more and show here. I'm sorry, I'm running a little long. Explicability and acceptance challenges. Think about how you're going to present this in a court and talk about how you had this box, this software, classify your content and what testing you did and analysis you did and kind of how that's done so that the judge likes and validates and approves of the way you did it, of course. That's one of the knocks is it might be a little bit of a black box. So next steps, read a bunch, you guys. Look around for opportunities, get a free account. Look at your current vendors, the folks that are already providing you stuff and talk to them. What are you doing with AI and ML? They might want a customer to be an early adopter and try things out, customer references. Those things are valuable. So you've got stuff to bring. I just read this book here. I was recommended to be by Chris McHenry, our Chief Technology Officer. And it was a nice business level read. I read it on one flight to New York the other day and picked that up on, well, Chris gave it to me, but you can get it on Amazon. This is an interesting one here. It's a free course, Coursera, taught by Andrew Ng, who is one of the leaders in AI. He's a professor at Stanford. Go sign up. It's a free course. Pretty cool. I'm about halfway through myself. And, of course, go out and read from the providers, the big guys out there. And, folks, I'm 3 minutes over. My sincere apologies. I hope I didn't hurt your schedule. Hope that was worthwhile. And I want to see if there's any questions or comments or anything I want to throw out there real quick. And I see a couple out there. But, folks, we'll follow up with you individually. And since we're at our time, we're going to bid adieu. Thanks, and join us again next time. Bye-bye.